and if you don't like the answer, we can do another one and
Okay.
go from there. I'm going to, recording is started. I'm going to disappear my face.
All right.
Just to get it minimal. And yeah, so again, first of all, thank you so much. We do appreciate this. Just to warm up, you know, name, venue, the city you're in. Tell us a little bit about your venue, how long you've been there. Just give us a little background.
Okay, my name is Bob Simpson. I've been owning and operating bars, restaurants, and nightclubs for the past 45 years. Currently, I own and operate 5 venues in the city of Sacramento. Social Nightclub, Republic Bar and Grill, Bungalow, Malt and Mash, and then one in Davis called Parkside.
Awesome. Tell us a little bit about the issues or problems that you were having before you implemented Patronscan, and maybe a little bit how it felt like. Any specific story might help.
Yeah, you know, Patronscan has been so beneficial to me in my businesses because when you go back as far as I do and you have multiple venues, that's the key. Being able to communicate amongst venues in this way through Patronscan, because I had situations where maybe it's a bad actor causing me a major problem in one venue, and it would be so frustrating because how do you keep that person out of one of your other venues? You know, it might be across town. They're all not right next door to each other. The communication between management. We would go so far back in the early days as take Polaroids of people and then print a copy of it and put it up at the front door of it. It started looking like a post office with most wanted pictures. So it wasn't the ideal way to try and distinguish who a problem person was in, you know, that was going out and frequenting the different venues. Oh, I've noticed Patronscan being a huge benefit with regards to that, keeping bad characters out of your establishment, because the percentage of customers that create problems is actually very minimal. It's just those, you know, 1%, if that, that can cause a lot of destruction for business operators.
That makes sense. What was unique or different about the Patronscan solution?
I think the technology, you know, it was instantaneous, it was fast. And once again, going back to having multiple venues, you know, if there's a customer that's been a problem in Republic Bar and Grill, and the last place I want him in is Social Nightclub. It's going to flag, it's going to come up, it's going to notify my security, it's going to tell them the incident and the severity of it. And then, of course, management can make that decision on their own. But I can assure you, if they've been in one of my venues, they've been given the benefit of the doubt, they're not getting in the second one.
And I'm going to go a little off script on this, but just to ask you, because we talked about fake IDs and the escalation of fake IDs infiltrating bars and nightclubs, mostly because they're just so damn good nowadays. And then on top of that, the realization that it's just not fair to your staff to be able to memorize 4,800 different types of IDs from around the world and know if they're counterfeit or not. So maybe speak to a little bit of like having technology to help, you know, your staff in identifying some of these counterfeit IDs.
Absolutely, Jason. That's a huge point because, you know, the scanners, aside from the coordination of keeping flags and problem patrons out, you know, it's a go-to. It's a must-have for your ID checker at the front. Having, you know, so many different states and different forms of IDs, especially in college towns, and folks are coming in from out of the area, out of state. Maybe they went to high school in you know, Arizona, and now they've transferred to UC Davis, and to try and recognize each and every identification driver's license is very, very challenging for a door person. You know, in the old days, we had little books that the beer companies would give us, and you'd have to thumb through the pages. Here it's right there. I mean, it's going to tell you if it's a legitimate, real ID or not. And, you know, the fakes are getting extremely sophisticated nowadays and very inexpensive for college students to pool their money up, buy them as a package, and then creates all sorts of havoc. They've got plenty of time when they hit 21 to come to the bars. They've got to wait their time.
Maybe take us to the moment, maybe a specific incident when you saw that that system really worked for you.
Another thing that I really liked about it was I had a situation, one of my cashiers was having, a domestic challenge, and her partner was abusive and they were breaking up, and we don't want to ruin the guy's nightlife experience other places. Didn't know him, didn't care to know him, but we're trying to protect our employee. And one of the features on Patronscan has the private ban, or it's an internal notification where, fortunately, he was coming in and he was coming in angry and probably to confront his ex-girlfriend. And my bouncers were able to realize that we had entered it as a flag and took him aside, talked to him, cooled him off. He went away, and time heals some of these young people's relationships, and life goes on. So I do feel that we probably prevented, number one, an employee from maybe possibly getting assaulted that night.
What does life look like now? Like, what's the impact been for your business?
I think far less problems, because to me it's a deterrent. It's an attitude, it's a behavioral changer when people come up to the door. And in Sacramento, we're blessed because so many of the venues are utilizing Patronscan. So there's not that question, or what is this, right? I remember in the early days, you got a little bit more of that, or are you taking my information? And, we could always assure them, no, that's not the case. This is for public safety. But I do believe that, can you refresh me, Jason, on that? I'm sorry. I've started.
Just what's life look like now? What's the impact been?
Oh, it's just been very, very helpful that I can, not expect myself personally be in each and every venue, still know what full occupancy counts are, understand what the ratios for my marketing capabilities are from male to female, understanding what the age and the demographics are. And once again, it's a behavioral changer. It keeps folks from misbehaving just because they know, their identification is in the system and accessible for law enforcement if they were to do something criminal.
We talk about that as prevention and accountability. So it prevents things from happening in the first place, but God forbid something happens, they got an accountability side to it as well. And we actually had a really good story from a client in Sacramento. I don't think they're open anymore, but Susan Durst, she was over at Press Club.
Sure.
But she actually was physically assaulted she was working the bar one time, but she was actually the owner of the business as well. And she got basically a finger kind of slipped into an area that shouldn't have. But the story she came back with was how obviously his night was, then she flagged him, and then but he came back a week later, tried to get in, and thank goodness for the system, flagged him. Then he tried to get in again, but then this time he came in with an apology. He was so sorry, and he kind of went, oh my goodness, and please, I'll do different, right? And then she was like not buying it, and she goes, you know what, I don't think so. And then it was like another week later, he kind of called her and really sincerely made a change, and this is what kind of changes I'm making in my life. He actually started telling her, I've now reached out to my mom. He just kind of really kind of confessed into, you know what, you're right, that was a problem. And she finally, well, you know what, I won't let you in mine, but I'm going to take you off the public, and just did a private one. So I only give you that story just, if there's anything that comes to mind that's similar, or that behavioral change though was a real impact in saturated cities of Patronscan.
Yeah, that's where I see a major effect. I've also had situations where, guys will get confrontational at the door. And if I'm out front, I've never been afraid to back, being the leader to say, hey, what's the problem? Calm down, trying to be a buffer between my security guards and the patron. And the easiest thing to tell them is, sir, we don't want to ruin your nightlife experiences anyplace else. Just go home for the night. A lot of times it kind of clicks in that, yeah, I'm not going to be able to go out for the next, month or 3 months or a year, depending on what I've done. And certainly if I'm going to push it and get in and start an altercation or a physical fight with, an owner or his security, there's going to be, a problem for him. So I think that's been a real benefit too. Just being able to tell people and allow them to be dissuaded not to start something when you have the information that you would need to keep them out of other venues.
Absolutely. All right. So what's your experience been with Patronscan so far?
Very, very positive. I mean, Patronscan, like I said, I've been an advocate for it. The company itself is very, very timely in getting back. If there's ever any service or if we have any login issues on our own, you know, it could be connection. They've been very, very helpful, and it's 24/7. So if we have an issue and we're opening up on a Friday night, it's a quick phone call, and it's very infrequent that that happens, but they're very, very responsive across the board. When I need a new system, I open a lot of venues and they're quick. I get my equipment timely and fast and ready to plug and play. It's been very, very positive.
Good. If you had to sum up Patronscan in one word or one phrase, what would it be and why?
Life changer. I think that it allows an operator, once again, that has multiple places, that you don't have to be spreading yourself too thin and running all over the place. It's a tremendous tool in multiple ways. I think an underlooked at way is in your marketing, you know, looking at the demographics, seeing where your patients are coming from, understanding their age, knowing what their gender is, and to be able to manipulate your marketing based on those findings is really helpful. And I remember in the old days, I used to keep a little log, you know, what I called it the red book, that would tell me the weather and different factors. And just knowing that with Patronscan, I can see what I was doing the prior year. It's just made life and recording things much simpler.
Perfect. What would you say if customers ask, hey, why are you scanning my ID?
For your safety. And you don't get that anymore, like I said, because in Sacramento, there's so many of the venues utilizing Patronscan. But I remember in the early days, you know, people want, are you collecting my data? Yeah, no, we don't do that. We don't share anything. This is just a public safety tool. And people want to go to places and be safe. You know, it's seen our world change a lot. And so you know, we wand people down and you pat people down and you search purses and you run through a scanner. And I honestly feel that people don't see that as a detriment. It's where they want to go to those places that are well secure so they can have a good time, because they're you know, they can be in a vulnerable place when they're drinking and out partying. So we like to provide a safe place for them.
Perfect. And lastly, what would you say to somebody that says, hey, Patronscan is just too expensive?
Well, when you look at the cost of Patronscan for what it prevents, which is possibly, you know, your livelihood, your liquor license, if you're allowing in minors, if you don't have the tool to be able to check IDs properly. That's one thing. If you're in a disorderly house where you're having multiple problems because you're letting the same knucklehead in time and time again, and you know, staff changes. There's young people that work in these venues, and staff changes, and all of a sudden they might recognize somebody, but the new guy at the door doesn't. It's very, very inexpensive tool to operate a business, aside from the fact of what you get out of it for your promotional team, which is all the marketing tools that it provides.
Perfect. Well, that is the end of the questions. And if there's any other story or anything you wanted to share that we didn't touch on, let me know, and I will be quiet.
Absolutely. I just think that, you know, in a nutshell, I don't have a lot of good stories per se, but I just think it's been a great tool and a great experience working with the folks at Patronscan.
Well, thanks so much, Bob. That concludes the interview. So I just try to make it short and sweet, and appreciate all the effort. And I know you've kind of stepped out many times to advocate for us, and much appreciated. We will continue to kind of support you any way we can. And yeah, and for sure I'll be coming down there in December to kind of see the city and kind of get a real view of it, you know, hands on. And
beers are on me, buddy.
oh, I look forward to it. I think it'll be a blast, and we'll try to, again, what we're trying to do is trying to duplicate the success of Sacramento in more and more cities. And just so you know, like Orlando is coming on strong, Pittsburgh's coming on strong. You know, we already have, you know, a lot in Phoenix, Arizona, Like, so we're getting all these pockets, and really the conversation becomes the more the better, because it just makes the system even more powerful.
Absolutely. That's a game changer. The more people that are on it, I don't want the problem child from Vegas coming up to Sacramento, nor do they want ours. So I think that's great. The more places it's implemented in is better for everybody. And never hesitate if you have a customer that's kind of on the edge, right? And they don't know. I have no problem. You give them my email and my phone number and have them reach out. And I'll give a reference.
Thank you. And I'll tell you one quick story. I don't know if I told you this, but there's a guy that got somebody destroyed their TVs. Did I tell you this story? Oh, so it was a small bar in Vernon, BC, up in Canada, and a guy came in, wrecked a few TVs, and got kicked out. The whole thing, whatever. He's expat from the US, so kind of put him in the system, whatever. Never will see this guy again, probably, kind of thing. Well, he gets a phone call. Must have been 2 months later. And it's from the individual, and goes, "Hey, I don't remember, but I guess I trashed your place because I went to a bar in Denver here, and I was on the flag system, and it looks like I owe you some money. So can I send you some money for those TVs, and can you take me off the flag network?" And he goes, "Wow, what a great little tool." But, he was like, "I got my $1,000 back, and this guy felt remorse, and so it kind of worked all in all."
I think that paid for itself for several months, didn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It sure did. Well, thanks so much, Bob. And yeah, like I said, I look forward to seeing you in December.
I'd say hi to your team. You take care.
I will.
All right.
You bet.
Bye.
Bye.